Hello everyone, this is Dartt, and this video is aimed at helping you get the absolute most out of your Marksman Hunter. I'm using Azortharian's Marksman Guide on icyveins.com for most of the theory crafting and number crunching. For those who don't know, Azortharian is a very respectable player who currently raids with Vanguard and actually used to raid lead for Method. Of course, I'll be adding in my own commentary as well as someone who started playing back in Burning Crusade as a marksman. Basically, marksman before marksman was cool. This is my favorite hunter spec and it has a lot to offer, so let's get started. Where does marksman stand in comparison to other hunter specs? Marksman has a lot of flexibility in its abilities and talents that allow it to tailor its overall build from fight to fight and remain optimal. Its best potential build has no need of a pet at all, which removes a huge DPS prerequisite. Also, Marksman's cleave effects are a lot wider angle than Beastmaster's, which can make Marksman a more desirable choice in fights like Il'gynoth or Helya, even though Beastmaster might pull slightly better numbers due to having the best legendaries. I can't really for the life of me comment on how Marksman compares to Survival, because one's a ranged and the other is a melee, and that's literally comparing apples to oranges. What's changed since patch 7.1.5? The short answer, a lot. Most of the changes centered around nerfing Marksman's AoE capability, along with its sustained single target damage. The developers wanted to make using aim shot in conjunction with vulnerable windows a critical gameplay element. On the plus side, Marksman isn't locked into using Sidewinders as the only viable level 100 talent. For those of you who prefer to make your own decisions, here's a brief but complete list of changes made to Marksman in 7.1.5. Marksman can now use tar and freezing traps, which were previously survival only. The chance of a marking targets proc has been increased by around 45%. Marksman's focus pool is now 130 rather than 120. Aim shot damage has been increased by 35%. Arcane shot damage has been increased by 54%. Bursting shot damage has been increased by 50%. The quick shot artifact trait now reduces true shots cooldown by 8 seconds per point, down from 10. Vulnerable does not stack by default anymore. It always lasts 7 seconds and increases aim shot and piercing shot damage by 100%. Patient Sniper's previous effect is now the baseline for the debuff. Mark Shot is no longer affected by Vulnerable. Its base damage has been buffed by 120% to compensate, and its focus cost has been reduced to 25 from 30. Aim Shot now deals 100% increased damage to targets you have not hit before. The level 15 talent Steady Focus now only needs 2 arcane shots in a row to activate, down from 3. The level 30 talent Black Arrow's focus cost was reduced to 10 focus, down from 40. The level 30 talent True Aim now gives 2% increased damage to certain shots and stacks 10 times, up from 8 times. The level 45 talent Farstrider now gives active ability Critical Strikes a 15% chance to reset the cooldown on Disengage, up from a 10% chance. The level 60 talent Explosive Shots focus cost was changed to 20. It previously cost no focus. The level 60 talent Patient Sniper has been redesigned, as its previous effect is now baseline. It increases the damage bonus of Vulnerable by 10% for every second of its duration. The level 60 talent Sentinel has been redesigned. It allows you to place a reticule that applies Hunter's Mark to all targets within it. After 6 seconds, Hunter's Mark is applied again, and this happens thrice, with the final application being after 18 seconds of placing the reticule. It now has a 1-minute cooldown. The level 90 talent Barrage no longer deals double damage to the current target. Instead, it deals the same low damage to all targets. This was to make it less viable for single target when it was meant to be an AoE talent. The level 100 talent Piercing Shots damage has been reduced by 26%, but is now affected by Vulnerable. The level 100 talent Sidewinder's Focus generation has been reduced to 35%, or 235 from 50, How does the Marksman spec work? Focus is the primary resource for all Hunter specs. It passively regenerates at 10 focus per second. Arcane Shot is able to be spammed and can generate 8 focus per cast as well. Aim Shot is Marksman's most important damage ability. It's important to keep in mind that it is a 2-second cast that cannot be cast while moving. Its damage is greatly increased by Vulnerable, and you want to get as many aim shot casts off as possible while Vulnerable is active. Marked Shot deals moderate damage and applies Vulnerable, but it can only be cast while Hunter's Mark is active. This happens when you cast Arcane Shot while a marking target's proc is active. These marking target's procs come from auto shots. Arcane Shot does not really do an appreciable amount of damage on its own. Its main purposes are first to allow you to generate focus, and second to provide vulnerable activating procs. Its multi-target version is multi-shot, and Sidewinders will take the place of both of these abilities if that talent is taken. True Shot is an extremely important cooldown that increases your haste and causes Arcane Shot to activate Hunter's Mark. Through the Marksman artifact weapon, it also increases critical strike bonus damage by 50%. Finally, Windburst deals an immense amount of damage on a 20-second cooldown as well as applying Vulnerable. It costs 20 focus and can serve in the role of a gap filler for your rotation or as an additional round of Vulnerable every 20 seconds. What are the pros and cons of playing Marksman? The pros? High burst damage on both single target and AoE. Different talents amplify different strengths, for example, stacked versus spread out AoE. And Marksman is nowhere near as reliant on having good legendaries to perform well as Beastmaster is. The cons. Mobility is restricted by aim shot. This makes managing your movement absolutely critical. Also, damage from one boss attempt to another is going to be very inconsistent due to procs and RNG. So just how viable is Marksman in 7.1.5? Marksman is the most versatile of the ranged hunter specs. It is nearly equivalent in terms of single target damage to Beastmaster and pulls ahead unless the Beastmaster has its very best legendaries, or perhaps a very good legendary combo. Unfortunately, some of this has to be discounted to take Beastmaster's mobility into account. Also, being significantly more challenging to play than Beastmaster without the added reward of additional damage doesn't help. Really, the choice is pretty simple. If you have the right legendaries to make Beastmaster work, you'll play that for optimal DPS. Otherwise, you'll want to play Marksman. Talent builds. Fortunately for Marksman, whether you're wanting to run Mythic Plus or Raids, the same talents come up as optimal. As a general rule, if you're wanting to do PvE, you'll want Lone Wolf, Lock and Load, Post Haste, Explosive Shot for AoE, or Patient Sniper for single target, Binding Shot, Volley, and Piercing Shot. This is really pretty simple, and you can switch out one talent and go from Mythic Plus play to high-end rating. Icy Veins doesn't give a PvP build, but I put some options together for you to consider. For level 15, Lone Wolf is still your strongest choice. But if you like having a pet for distraction value or whatever, consider taking Careful Aim if you're doing smaller scale battlegrounds or arena skirmishes to punish healer mana bars. Level 30, True Aim. Even if you have the War Belt of the Sentinel Army to make Trick Shot look desirable, you'll probably do better in PvP with higher mobility, and that means relying more on explosive and piercing shots. Stick with True Aim. Level 45. Post Haste is almost a must due to its ability to cause disengage to free from movement impairing effects. The additional 60% move speed can also be a lifesaver. Level 60. Explosive Shot. Patient Sniper is a solid choice in PvE, but in PvP you don't really have the luxury of trying to manage vulnerable windows to get the most out of them. Level 75. The choice here is really situational and will depend on your playstyle and what kind of PvP you're doing. If you're on a large map battleground where objectives matter more than killing individual enemies, then Camouflage will be your correct choice. If you're doing arenas, you'll want Wyvern Sting. And if you're running smaller scale or flag carry battlegrounds, then Binding Shot is going to be your go-to. Level 90. I would say Murder of Crows here, with one exception. Volley can come in very handy in battlegrounds where flag defense is important, be it Arathi Basin, Battle of Gilneas, or to a lesser extent Alterac Valley or Isle of Conquest. Level 100. Piercing Shot, hands down. This one shot has the potential to be your game changer. Just make sure you're using it at full mana. Artifact traits and relics. Not much has really changed concerning the optimal marksman artifact trait progression in the past year. If you're looking for that information, you can find it either in earlier versions of this video or on Icy Veins' website in the Marksman Hunter guide section. Suffice to say, your goal is to unlock rapid killing and bullseye as quickly as possible because those help make your True Shot cooldown incredibly powerful. On the subject of relics, the relic trait is not nearly as important as item level. As a general rule of thumb, a 2 to 3 item level increase is worth more than a lower level item best in slot trait. Speaking of relic traits, ones to watch for are Quick Shot, Marked for Death, and then either Windrunner's Guidance or Precision. Openers and rotation. The rotation you follow will really depend on whether you're using the meme build that utilizes both Piercing Shot and Explosive Shot, or the Trick Shot build. If you're using the meme build, you want to open with the following. Use your Potion of Deadly Grace. Begin casting Windburst about 1.5 seconds before the boss is pulled. Immediately activate True Shot. Cast Piercing Shot after Windburst has hit the target. Either melee range double tap Explosive Shot or stand at the range and tap it when it's underneath the boss. Cast Arcane Shot. Cast Mark Shot. Continue with your rotation. That rotation being Piercing Shot on cooldown when vulnerable is up and you have 100 focus. Delay if necessary if you can hit multiple targets. Explosive Shot on cooldown. Make sure to explode it close to your desired target. Windburst on cooldown. Marked Shot when available. Barrage on cooldown, but only if it will hit 3 or more targets. And if you've taken this talent, do not bother using this for a single target ever. Arcane Shot or Multi-Shot on 2 or more targets when you have a marking target's proc. They'll light up. Aim Shot if you can cast before vulnerable expires. For the most part, Aim Shot will function as a focus stump. Arcane Shot if you have nothing else to do, mainly to regen focus. Now if you're using a Trick Shot build, use Potion of Deadly Grace, cast Murder of Crows if you have it, cast Windburst from as far away as possible. Then immediately use True Shot, Aim Shot, Arcane Shot, Aim Shot, Arcane Shot, Aim Shot, until Vulnerable ends. Then Marked Shot, Aim Shot until you hit 95 focus, dump your focus on aim shots, refresh Vulnerable with Marked Shot if need be, and continue with your rotation. That is, cast Murder of Crows on cooldown, cast Windburst on cooldown if you don't have time for aim shot or Vulnerable isn't up. Cast Marked Shot, but only if Vulnerable isn't up or about to run out. Cast Barrage if there are 3 or more targets. Cast Aim Shot if you can land it before Vulnerable expires. Spam Arcane Shot if you have nothing better to do, or if you have Sidewinders, cast it if and only if marking targets is active. Now, as far as a multi-target rotation goes, there really isn't a go-to here. The best thing to do is use Barrage on cooldown if you took that ability. Switch to multi-shot on 3 or more targets. If you have 4 or more targets, be sure to spend marking targets procs as soon as you get them and Marked Shot as often as possible. If you're using the magnetized blasting cap launcher, Bursting Shot on cooldown whenever Vulnerable isn't up. Cooldowns. You have one cooldown that really matters, and that is True Shot. You want to use it as often as possible during a fight. Stat priority. Marksman's stat priority is pretty straightforward. After Agility, you want Mastery, Critical Strike, Haste, and finally Versatility. There's no soft caps, so load up on the first 3 of these as much as possible. Gems and Enchants. As far as gems go, you want 1 Saber's Eye of Agility and Masterful Shadow Rubies in any slots beyond that. Use Mark of the Trained Soldier for neck, Binding of Agility for back, and Binding of Mastery for rings. Consumables. You'll get the most benefit from Flasks of the Seventh Demon, Potions of Deadly Grace, and Nightborn Delicacy Platters. If you plan on doing progression rating, you'll also want to keep Defiled Augment runes handy. Add-ons. For rating, I would strongly recommend using either Deadly Boss mods or Big Wigs. Having a damage meter such as Skada or Recount is a good idea to help show you where to improve. Details is another damage meter that's low memory consumption and which performs well. GTFO is a small add-on that will help alert you to move if you're standing in something harmful. Let's see, best in slot listings. If you like, there is a best in slot listing in the appropriate section of Icy Vein's Marksman Guide. You can also use programs like Pawn and AskMrRobot.com to help gauge item improvements. Marksman Legendary ratings. Currently, Oler's Feather Snowshoes is on top. Warbelt of the Sentinel Army is next. Then the Mark II Gyroscopic Stabilizer, if you have the Warbelt. Otherwise, Zevrim's Hunger, and then the Stabilizer. Kil'jaeden's Burning Wish, and the Magnetized Blasting Cap Launcher round out the list. That's everything for now. Once again, this is Dartt. I wish all of you hunters the very best. Like, comment, subscribe. Good luck. Have fun.